All right. Well, it's good to be back in the studio. And now I'm going to answer the question for someone who thought the last podcast was being done live. Spoiler alert, it wasn't.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please, I'm begging you, call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. We may be on Blue Sky. I'm not 100% sure. This is something I should probably look into. And you can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. The best way to get a hold of me is to leave comments right here on YouTube at the Locked On MLB page. You may want to check out Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, Sully Baseball on Blue Sky. I'm various places. YouTube is probably the best place to get a hold of me. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. What I am saying, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel's. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, well, I'm back in the studio and in the luxurious Pasadena Locked On MLB studios overlooking the historic Rose Bowl. I had we came back from our Long Beach sojourn, and it's not over here, folks, but we're doing our best. And I went to the Santa Anita track today with my two sons. We volunteered. There's a big, huge, a donation center for the many people there who have lost their homes in this horrible fire here in Southern California. And when I was there helping, I saw two people who I work with who can't go back to their homes right now. So it's a heartbreaking thing. Anything you can do to help, anything, donating clothes, donating some time if you're down here, donating some money, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. And another thing you can do is stay positive and stay, what's the word I'm looking for? Productive. If you want to talk politics about it, you want to talk conspiracy theories about it, this is a tip from your pal Sully. Shut the hell up. And now back to baseball. I don't think I said anything controversial. If you found what I said to be controversial, that's a you issue. But I posted a podcast when I was down in Long Beach, away from the Flames. And it was, and while it was going on, I saw that there was afterwards, I saw in the chat that there was a fan named Rams Fan Puka 17 who really was under the impression that I was recording that podcast live. I wasn't. I recorded it on my phone on a Little League Baseball diamond. And Rams Life Puka 17 asked me, what did I think about, asked basically this question. I'll post it up here. Do you think the Braves will sign anybody, or do you think they're done for the offseason? And I didn't answer him because it wasn't live. And he posted like, what do you think, Rams Life? 400,000 messages saying, why won't you answer me? Why won't you answer me? I'm answering you now. These aren't always done live. This one is. And I see some people are in the live chat and posting some comments. Here, BOI Prod says, thanks for making this one. Can't wait. Do you know what? Are you the same guy? Is that you by a different name? I think it is. And it looks like we got Jeff Cohen, who is an everyday Sully listener. Thanks so much. And Jeff wrote some nice things while we were hiding from the fire. Okay. Basically, I think BOI Prods and the other one, which is Rams Life, I think that's the same dude. If it's the same dude, let me know. And if it's not, then you're going to like this too. The Atlanta Braves, it's strange because this is how people can look at a season and have it completely be painted with the image of what happened in October. And Atlanta had the kind of the, for the lack of a better word, the aura of having a very disappointing season last year. They held on by their absolute fingernails on the last day of the season in that weird doubleheader makeup date. And in the end, Atlanta, New York, and Arizona, the defending National League champion, all finished with the exact same record, 89 and 73. But Arizona was on the outside looking in because of head-to-head matchups and things like that. And so, and they don't play one-game playoffs anymore because, my God, they play so many. Now, it's funny, Arizona went to the World Series in 2023, so that season's looked upon as a gigantic success. And last year, they missed the playoffs, which looked as a disappointment. Well, Arizona won more games last year than the year they won the pennant, and Atlanta won 89 games. 89 games. Only 3 teams in the American League could match that total. New York, Baltimore, and Cleveland. And they finished 6 games behind the Philadelphia Phillies. And for a giant chunk of the year, they looked like they were a potential pennant contender. And yet, because they hung on by their fingernails, they didn't win the division, and they wound up getting unceremoniously dumped by the San Diego Padres in 2 games. The season's looked upon as a disappointment. There were a lot of positive things about the season, and not the least of which was the emergence of Chris Sale. Now, for those of you who know me, and I know I do, I am one to point out when I'm wrong. I'm not ashamed to say a prediction I made, a take I made, blew up in my face. 2 blew up in my face big time last year. I thought the Ohtani gambling situation. Remember that? Remember how big that was? I don't think he was gambling, but I thought he was covering the bets of his buddy, and that his buddy was, that he was a bit of a schmuck. He was a bit of Alfredo Corleone. I had no idea that his interpreter was this Machiavellian character that he turned out to be. I was wrong about that. I was also wrong about the Mets. That I thought when they had a good June and July, I thought this is a mirage. You got to sell. It's a seller's market. You could make the team really good. And I could not have been more wrong about that as they got to within 2 wins of the World Series. Well, another thing I was wrong about was I was wrong that the Red Sox were right to trade Chris Sale. Now, I'm a native New Englander, grew up with the Red Sox. Chris Sale was on the mound when they won the World Series in 2018, a World Series of which there was some, let's just be Irish and call them shenanigans. And I thought Chris Sale was going to retire. And so if they got Vaughn Grisham, a potential, solid infield prospect for him, I thought, great. He hadn't pitched, he pitched 20 games the year before, but he wasn't really that effective. And it hadn't been really since he had stood on the mound clinching the World Series that he had been an ace. He pitched okay in a handful of games in 2021, but he was no longer an ace. And so when he was traded to the Braves, I thought, okay, well, they got something for him. And so did the Braves. They got a pitching triple crown, 18 wins, 2.38 earned run average, led the league in strikeouts, led the league in a lot of categories. Finally won a Cy Young Award as he was a top 5 Cy Young candidate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years in a row. And by the way, that other year he finished 6th in the Cy Young vote. He was constantly knocking on the door of a Cy Young. Probably could have won the Cy Young in 2017. He didn't, but he could have. That's when he struck out 308 batters and 214 in third innings pitched for the Red Sox in his first year in Boston. But he came up absolutely smoking. Did you predict that? Did all of you predict that? I want to see it. I want to see it notarized that you predicted that he was going to finally win his Cy Young Award. Well, they have him. Now, are they going to get another season like that? Are they going to get another ace season? Because despite winning the Cy Young Award and being the top starting pitcher in the National League, you will note that he did not pitch in the postseason. Why? That injury bug caught up with him, as it's done virtually every year since 2018. He missed a bunch of starts in 2018. He missed a bunch of starts, and it was pretty ineffective in 2019. He missed all the COVID year. He missed almost all the year where the Red Sox got back to the ALCS in 2021. He only, between 2019, between missing the COVID year and 2023, he pitched 11 games total. He didn't amass 50 innings total in 3 seasons. You'll forgive me if I didn't think that was a workhorse. So which one are you going to get from Chris Sale? If he is even a good pitcher next year, Atlanta's in decent shape, even though they've lost a couple of key players. Max Fried, who was the ace on the team when they won the World Series in 2021, and arguably could have been the World Series MVP that year. He wasn't, because Jose Soler was on the team. Max Fried is now signed with the Yankees. Will that be a good move for the Yankees? We'll see. The Braves have been pretty smart about letting players walk when they think that, not 100% sure about this one. Freddie Freeman notwithstanding, but it's not like they have had a chump at first base since then. Matt Olson, who didn't have an MVP caliber season last year, but is a workhorse, plays every day, hits a lot of home runs, does okay. Max Fried is scrammed. Charlie Morton has scrammed to Baltimore. That leaves 2 big holes in their starting rotation. Also, they traded away World Series hero Jorge Soler in this weird sort of, they picked him up for the stretch run to sort of remind people of the glory of 2021, and then sent him back into Anaheim, who love to pick up players who were great in World Series for other teams, hoping that they'll get a little bit of that magic back. There's some big holes in the team there. Big holes in the outfield, and also not 100% sure what's going to be happening if Acuna is going to be healthy or not. But guess what? I actually think the Braves are in better shape than some people think. And I also think, despite having a offseason that isn't filled with big splashy moves and they losing players, I do think that some of their strengths are there, and one of the teams they could kick the tires on could very well give them a player who could help them in the immediate future and give them that thing that is oh so glorious, and that is, say it with me, folks, pitching depth. But first, let's talk about our friends over at FanDuel. That was a flawless transition live. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now, new customers could bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. The Super Bowl that I want is still in play. What Super Bowl is that? Detroit versus Buffalo. And Buffalo won big. Or I guess they won enough. So we're going to see. We're going to see which one is the one to put your money on. I'm putting my money on both. Do you know why? I don't know anything about the NFL. I just want the Bills and the Lions to play in the Super Bowl. Why? It'll be a generational event for those fan bases. And let me tell you something. That was so emotional, I was unable to say it. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today to get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. In case you're wondering, if this wasn't a live show, there would have been a take 2. Now, there's a rumor that's floating around that the Atlanta Braves are going to try to get a flyer on Max Scherzer. Now, I think this is interesting. I think this is an interesting move, because if it's true, you're basically asking a future Hall of Famer to add another stop on a very cluttered back of his baseball card. Max Scherzer is one of the absolute best pitchers of his generation and is a cinch to get in the Hall of Fame. And between 2010 and 2021, an 11-year stretch was basically split evenly between the Detroit Tigers and the Washington Nationals. Remember, he was brought up as a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks, but I digress. He won the Cy Young Award with both Detroit and with Washington, and was a huge part of why Washington finally won a World Series title. Now, he had a cameo with the Dodgers, which included a series-clinching save. That's right, he got a save in the check swing heard around the world that Giants fans are still pissed off about. And then he made a playoff cameo. He's been in the playoffs in 2021, 2022, and 2023 with a different team each year. The Dodgers, the Mets, and picked up a second ring for his troubles with the Texas Rangers. Now, last year, he pitched 9 games. 9 games. It was barely a blip. The last few years, he's been effective. He was effective with the Mets in 2022 and in 2023. He was okay with the Rangers, and he was very good in 2021, splitting with Washington and Los Angeles. So an injury-plagued year. He was going to be 40 years old. There's virtually no risk in bringing him in. And as I brought up the other day, sometimes bringing in a Hall of Famer, like what happened with his teammate Verlander signing with San Francisco, having a Hall of Famer on the roster is never necessarily a bad thing. But I think there's someone else out there who I think would make a nice fit with the Atlanta Braves. And that is someone who is a little bit younger, pitched 154 innings last year, and is a former All-Star. And while was not great last year, another former Met in Marcus Stroman. And Stroman, who, an All-Star in 2023, is currently on the Yankees. And he did a wonderful impersonation of the Maytag repairman last year because he appeared in as many postseason games as I did for the Yankees. And the Yankees are doing everything in their power to dump him to anybody, it looks like. Ironically, partly because they got Max Fried. Now, if I were the Braves, and I'm not, I want to end that rumor right now, I would be calling up the Yankees because you're not asking Marcus Stroman to be the ace of the team. They already have Chris Sale on the team. They already have Spencer Schwellenbach on this team, who's a good pitcher. They already have Reynaldo Lopez on the team, who should do a good job. You're asking him to be a number 4 or 5 starter and give them the depth. Atlanta still has a terrific bullpen. Atlanta still has a lot of effective players in their bullpen. It's one of their great strengths. And if you just make sure you got a decent major leaguer pitching every day, yeah, if you bring in Scherzer and all of a sudden he goes swimming in the same swimming pool like in Cocoon that turned Chris Sale back into a Cy Young contender and ultimately winner, and you get Sale and Scherzer there, boom, 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 great. Fantastic. But I think Stroman is more likely to give you the innings than Scherzer is at this point. Now, there's no reason they can't go for both because Scherzer will just be a one-year deal and Stroman will cost them virtually nothing because the Yankees are basically looking to salary dump him. But if they just make sure, it's the Braves' way. It's how they won the World Series in 2021. Just make sure they're major leaguers on the GD roster, and they'll do just fine. And let's not forget, this is a smart organization. They really are. They don't do everything perfectly. Name which team did. For God's sakes, even the Casey Stengel Yankees botched it a few times. But they do things under the wire. Lest we forget when they went to the World Series and won it, picking up Rosario, picking up Peterson, picking up Soler, 3 moves that were completely unheralded when they happened. And all 3 of them came through as keys to winning the World Series. Well, guess what they did this year? They do need outfield help, especially because they traded away Soler. You're not 100% sure when you get Acuna back. Welcome Brian De La Cruz. Brian De La Cruz signing with Atlanta. This is a sneaky move. This is the type of move I kind of sort of love because it's under the radar. They're not going after Santander. They're not going after Juan Soto when he was available. They picked up a guy who is undeniably talented, like Soler, like Rosario, like Peterson. Here's De La Cruz coming in, former Marlin, and you put up some good numbers, has some pop, has some, is still pretty young, can play mainly right field, but can play, other outfield positions. And you're saying, oh, look at this guy. No, we just picked him up. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Just a guy who has played for organizations that dump decent players and not asking the world from him. I am telling you here, and I'm also telling you now, this is going to be one of those moves. This is going to be absolutely one of those moves that when they did it in the middle of December, nobody blinked. Nobody said a thing, to the point where Braves said, oh, when are they going to do something? I guarantee you, I'm not saying he's going to be an all-star, but he's going to be a productive player. Now, if that prediction blows up in my face, I take the blame. But this is the type of moves that Atlanta does. They get someone and say, this guy's talented. We put them on our team. And all of a sudden, he's going from the uncertainty of the Marlins and the uncertainty of the Pirates. And he's going to find himself on a good Braves team. Now, De La Cruz was part of the Marlins team that went to the wild card series in 2023. 2 years ago, the Marlins were a playoff team. And he was a key player on that team. Now he's on the Braves with more certainty. He knows he's going to be on a team that's going to be a contender. He knows he's on a team that's at least going to be playing meaningful games in September. And if he just plays to a certain, decent level, then this will be a steal. I don't worry too much about the Atlanta Braves. I really don't, because they're a smart organization. And their down year was an 89-win season, of which they still made the freaking playoffs. And who knows what would have happened if Sale was not injured. That's kind of sort of important. And so I guess what I'm saying is I do think the Braves have already made some good moves. They are going to bring in a veteran starting pitcher because that's what they do. And they may kick the tires on another veteran hitter, but they're not going to be the Jerkson Profar contest. They're not going to be the Santander contest or the Pete Alonso contest. It'll be someone who is talented and will fit into their program. That's what they do. And some sexier moves will be made and some bigger contracts will go around. And in the end, Atlanta will still be playing meaningful games in September. All right, wrapping up the show, I'm going to say happy birthday to one of my favorite players growing up, and that was the Mad Dog, Bill Madlock. Again, I love players like Bill Madlock who were legitimate all-stars, legitimate, elite players in their day who may not have been Hall of Famers, but put a huge impact on the game when they played. And that certainly was Bill Madlock. Now, at the time, in the 70s and the 80s, batting averages really were the king. Nobody really thought about on-base percentage. No one knew what the hell OPS was. Batting averages were, admittedly, probably had an inflated value in terms of the quality of how we deemed the player's quality. that being said, it still impresses me when someone hits for a good batting average. And 4 times, Bill Madlock led the National League in hitting, twice with the Cubs and twice with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was brought in from the Washington Senators organization, made his debut when they were the Texas Rangers, and was traded to the Cubs in the move that involved future Hall of Famer Fergie Jenkins. And his star blossomed with the Cubs, winning back-to-back batting titles in 75 and 76, and then was shipped off to San Francisco for Bobby Mercer. And he continued to be a good hitter, but was eventually traded in 1979 to the Pirates. He finished the 79 season with the Pirates, and he was great. And by the way, yes, we're inflating batting average, but he also, in 1976, when he led the league in hitting, he also had a 912 OPS. He had a 907 OPS in 1981. He still was able to get on base. He still was able to hit for good power, and was the last piece of that Pirate team. One of my favorite teams of all time, and the first team I ever watched win the World Series was the Bill Madlock 1979 We Are Family Pirates, led, of course, by Willie Stargell. And they also had eventual Hall of Famer Dave Parker and another Hall of Famer, Burt Blyleven. And it was one of the most fun teams you could ever follow. And he continued his great hitting with the Pirates, winning the batting title in 81 and 83. And he bounced. He wound up playing in the playoffs with Los Angeles in 1985. And he finished his career as a part-time DH with Sparky Anderson's Detroit Tigers. He finished his career with 2,008 hits, batting .305 with a career OPS of .807, and was an MVP candidate several times in his career. And he was just a fabulously consistent player who was part of one of the single most beloved teams I can ever remember, the 1979 Pirates. And he was a coach with the Tigers, and he is currently living in Las Vegas, Nevada. But he is one of those players who, not a Hall of Famer, never going to get his number retired, but for fans who saw him play, knew that he was tremendous. So happy birthday to Bill Madlock, who's, I'm keeping your memory alive. So there you go. I hope I answered as many Braves questions as I can. Hey, Jeffrey Humphrey says, thanks, Sully. Jake from Locked On Braves always suggests your podcast. And that should tell you, if you're a fan, check out Jake from Locked On Braves. A lot of great shows are out there on the Locked On Podcast Network. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. Leave a message here on YouTube, or you can follow me at Locked On at Sully Baseball on Blue Sky, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And let me know if there's any topics you want me to cover, because the off season, we got Hall of Fame stuff coming up soon too. Talking about the Atlanta Braves and how, do you know what? I think they're in good shape. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.